Lord, that is our prayer, to bring you praise in all that we do, to sing praise. When life is great, when life is bad, when life is in the middle and it's just kind of blah, Lord, we just pray that our hearts would be for you, because we know your heart is for us, and we just pray that we would bring you praise in all that we do, say, think, and the ways that we act. In your name we pray. Amen. Oh, good. You're all already sitting. You got it. You're on top of it. You know what to do. Hey, this morning we need to move a really heavy table. This morning we need to finish this red series, and we are talking about red, and red does not stand for the red statements in the New Testament. It can if you want it to. That's fine. I understand. We hear red, we see red, and we need it to mean red letters, all right? But what it does mean is retired and extremely dangerous. And so we have been talking about extremely dangerous statements that Jesus makes. And here's kind of what the retired part of that means. It's the fact that we read some of these statements. They're in red letters, so it works all the way around. We're that good. That's how we do it, all right? It works all the way around. But we read some of these statements, and we either don't understand it, we don't get it, we don't understand the context, so we don't get it. Honestly, sometimes we read it, and we're like, I'm not going to apply that to my life. That's craziness. So we're not doing that, and we just kind of retire them. We kind of just stop reading them, or we read over that section of Scripture pretty quickly, and we go to like the obvious points or the clear points, but we really don't get some of the things that Jesus has said. And so we've been talking the last few weeks about these red statements, these retired and extremely dangerous statements that if we were to apply to our lives, if we were to understand, would not only, they would make us extremely dangerous Christians, and that we would be living the words of Jesus. And so this morning I want to take you to John chapter 10. We're going to wrap this thing up, but we need to start at the end of the story so that because we're going to hear a really familiar story this morning. And if we just read the story, you'd be like, that's not dangerous at all. Like, what's so dangerous about this? So I need you to go to John chapter 10, and we got to start in 19, because I want you to see the response of people before we get into the story. I want you to see the response of the people that Jesus was talking to and how they responded to a pretty familiar story that I think most of us may know and have heard already. So John chapter 10 in your Bibles, and here we go. John chapter 10. Verse 19 says this: the Jews who heard these words were again divided. There goes Jesus again, dividing people, making things complicated, saying things that people don't agree with. Jesus, what's up with that? Why are you doing this? Verse 20, many of them said, he is demon-possessed and raving mad. Why listen to him? They look at each other and they go, this guy's a crazy lunatic. This guy is nuts. Now I want you to notice that they're not mad at Jesus. They're not walking away from Jesus. But this statement is just Jesus is a crazy nutcase. All right? The response is that Jesus is a lunatic. Jesus is demon-possessed. He's talking madness. This doesn't jive with what I'm used to. This isn't what I'm programmed for, they think. This isn't how life works, is what they're saying. Why should we even listen to this guy? Why do we bring 5,000 people and all of our wives and kids out to a pasture and listen to this guy talk? Why do we even listen to him? He's a lunatic. He's raving mad. 21. But others said, these are not the sayings of someone possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? Can the demon open the eyes of the blind? So there's the response. There's a response to what we're about to read in the previous verses. He's crazy. He's a lunatic. Why do we even listen to him? And what are we even doing with this guy? Why do we even pay attention to him anymore? Why do we let him in our synagogues to teach? And some said, well, you know what? It's kind of orderly. Like what he's saying at least makes sense. He's not babbling on like a demon-possessed person making no sense. And so they're kind of divided and they're split once again. All right? Rewind. Back into chapter 10. Go to verse 1. And let me give you some context for what happened up to this point. 2 weeks ago, if you weren't here, that's fine. I'm going to catch you up really, really quickly. There was a blind man that Jesus healed. The Pharisees pulled this blind man aside. They go, how did you heal? They start questioning him. What's going on? How did this happen? And the Pharisees don't like the blind man. The blind man gives his answer. The Pharisees don't like that answer, so the Pharisees go and get the blind man's parents. His parents say, hey, he can answer for himself. If you were here, you remember this story. Ron told it very well. I'm not going to bring points out of the story. It's just the context of what we're about to get into. All right? Eventually, the Pharisees go, who are you to lecture us? We're the spiritual elite. We're the smart ones. We're the good ones. We're the righteous ones. We're the religious ones. Get out of our church. They kick the blind man out in verse 34 of chapter 9. Jesus goes after this guy and says, and they have a conversation that ensues. Do you understand? Do you love me? Do you know what it is to follow me? They have this conversation which goes through verse 39 of chapter 9. Then we have our 2 weeks ago, our statement, I have come for judgment, so that the blind may see and those that see may become blind. And I want you to pick up in 40 when the Pharisees go, some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this statement, so that the blind see and the see become blind. That's the statement we're talking about. And they said, what? Are we blind also? They look at each other. They're kind of picking up on what Jesus is putting down. And they're like, is he trying to call us blind? We're the spiritually righteous ones. We're the right ones. We're the godly ones. We're the leaders of this generation. And Jesus is calling us blind. Is he really doing that? And Jesus says in verse 41, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. Jesus is like, I have no problem. I came for sin. I came for the guilty. Your problem is not that you're sinful. Your problem is that you don't think you're sinful. And then if you like to take notes and you like to mark up your Bible, you just need to cross off that 10 that's right there, because you're going into chapter 10. Just cross it off, because the story goes right into what we're going to talk about. All right, very truly I tell you, Pharisees, chapter 10, verse 1, very truly I tell you, Pharisees. Who's the audience? Talk to me. Who's the audience? Who is it? All right, it's the Pharisees. Jesus is talking to the Pharisees. It's a continuation of them kicking this blind man out of the temple, and here's what Jesus says. Chapter 10, verse 1, as a reference point. Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. And the one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. And the gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them. And his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. So Jesus tells them this story. He tells them a story about a shepherd, sheep, gate, a gate pen, a gate, the thief coming in, all these other things. And here's the Pharisees' response in verse 6. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Okay, that's kind of funny. You got to laugh because they just got done telling Jesus we're the smart ones, and now they don't get it. So Jesus is like, all right, let me tell you a story. And they look at each other and go, we don't get it. Jesus, help us. And let me just suggest to you why they don't get it, okay? And it's really not their fault that they don't get it. Let me just tell you why they kind of don't get it. They don't get it because Jesus didn't really just say anything profound. All right, now I know before you start throwing things at me, all right, let me tell you why it's not profound. Jesus is telling them the story of a typical morning in the life of a shepherd. Jesus is not drawing any points out yet. He's not trying to say anything yet. He's just trying to set up what he's about to do. And so he says, all right, let me tell you a story about what happens every morning for a shepherd. They go to the sheep pen, they get their sheep. They call their sheep by name because sheep recognize a shepherd's voice. The guy who's tending the sheep overnight recognizes the shepherd, lets him in. They walk out through the gate, and they go to pasture for the rest of the day. All right? Thieves will come in overnight. They'll jump over the walls, and this will happen. And the Pharisees look at each other, and they go, yeah, that sounds right. We got it. That's what happens on a typical morning for a shepherd, for the sheep, and for the gatekeeper. They get it, all right? Yeah, that sounds right. Here's what the Pharisees just did that may not be so obvious, is that they just inserted themselves as the shepherd in the story, all right? They look at each other. It's common in this time for kings and queens and princes and princesses and governors and rulers to call themselves shepherds. And so Jesus tells them a story about a shepherd and sheep, and the Pharisees go, yep, we're the shepherd in the story. We got it, Jesus. What's your point? Why are we listening to this? Why do we need to hear this? We're the shepherds. We have sheep. We understand Israel, nation of Israel, our sheep. What are you trying to say? And Jesus kind of shakes his head and goes, all right, now I'm going to make it plain and painfully obvious what I'm talking about. And we go into verse 7. Therefore, Jesus said to him, because they didn't get it, because they didn't understand, because Jesus is kind of setting it up, here it goes. Very truly I tell you that I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. Now you're going to get really confused for the rest of this text if you try to apply that to the first 5 verses, because in a minute Jesus is going to say, I'm the shepherd. So you're going to go, well, is he the gate or is he the shepherd? Or what's going on? Or how can he be both? And how can he open it for himself to do this and let people out? So you're going to get confused. Jesus now goes into an afternoon in the life of a shepherd. It's not drawing out from the first point. It's going on in the day in the life of a shepherd, okay? So what happens is the shepherd will go out. The sheep will go into the pasture. All right? By the way, how many of you are shepherds or own sheep? Good. That's what I thought. So this is why I'm telling you this. All right. So anyway, so they go out in the pasture, and about lunchtime, about probably maybe not lunchtime, 2, 3 o'clock, it's time for rest. And so the shepherd will try to find like a hedge or a nook or a cubby or a cranny, and like that way the sheep can go into some place and rest, or they can go out to pasture. And what the shepherd would do is he would place himself in the opening of that hedge. And so if you just imagine like a doorway, okay? A real-life example of this would be, I was watching my 2 boys and one of our neighbor's kids on Thursday night, and they were playing upstairs, and I sat at the top of my step so that nobody came in or went down or came up without me knowing what they were doing or who was going up and down. That's kind of what the shepherd does. He sits in the opening so that the sheep literally have to go through him. And in no uncertain terms, Jesus just said, I know he says, I'm the gate, and what he kind of means is, I'm the shepherd. He's like, guys, you thought you were the shepherds. I'm the shepherd. I sit in the gate. I protect the sheep. Sheep have to go in and out through me. And then he says this in verse 10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. And I know we all want to make the thief Satan. We're like, the thief is Satan. It's got to be Satan. All right? In context, the thief is the Pharisees. Those that steal and kill and destroy are the Pharisees. All right? So don't make it. It took everything in me not to make the thief Satan. It's going to take everything in you to not make him Satan. I have come, and this is what Jesus says, that they may have life and have it to the full. We've been doing this Red series, and we've been looking at I have come statements that Jesus makes. And they're provocative, and they're crazy, and they're extremely dangerous. And Jesus says, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. I kind of got to thinking about that, about coming for life, having life to the full. What does all that mean? And I kind of just want to ask you guys a question right now, this morning. And it goes like this. In what area of your life would you like to have more than you would normally expect or anticipate? In what area of your life would you like to have more than you would normally expect or anticipate? That idea of in the full or abundance or exceedingly more means more than you would expect or anticipate normally for a normal life. And I'd like to suggest to you, if you're a note taker, write it down. What area of your life would you like to have more in? What area of your life, if it was God's will, would you say, you know what, I would absolutely accept exceedingly more than I would expect or anticipate in that area of my life? For some of us, it's money. And look, I'm kind of with you. Like if I had exceedingly more than I would expect or anticipate, I'd be like, yeah, you know what, I've got some. There's some in my life. There's some in the bull, but I'll take more. Like, I'll take more. I'm not gonna be putting up a fight with God if He gives me more money. I'm not gonna fight it. I'm not gonna do that. Some of you, it's relationships. You're like, yeah, I'll take more relationships. I'd love to have more friends. Some of you are just friend people. So you're like, I want more friends. And some of you have 1,000 friends on Facebook, and what you need is deeper relationships, not more relationships. So you're like, hey, I'll take deeper relationships. I'd love to have deeper relationships. Some of you, there's nothing wrong with 1,000 friends on Facebook, by the way. It's an example. Okay. So anyway, so then, or you're like, I'll take more relationships. You're like, I would love to have more. And that's a good thing. Like, that's a God thing, community. It's all good. Like, I'd love to have more of that. Some of you are like, you know what? My reputation is kind of taking a hit, or my status in people's eyes is kind of taking a hit. So I'd love to have like a better reputation or more kind of status. For some of you, it's a job where you're like, you know what, I'd love a raise. Or you know what, better than that, I'd love a promotion, which is a permanent raise, you know? So that's good. So like, I'd love to have more of that. You want to have more of that. And there, you know, that's fine. For me, if you're asking me, I thought about this question. I was like, what would I really love to have more of? I'd love to have more house. I have a really small duplex, and I would just love to have more house. In a moment of honesty, I would say, you know what, if God gave me a more house or a bigger house, I'm good with that. I'm totally good with that. Some of you are like, you know what, I need more physical fitness. Like, I need more buffness. Some of you don't have that problem. Some of you do have that problem. I'm not looking at anybody. My eyes are closed. All right. So you're like, you know what? Or I like to be more beautiful. I like to look better. All right. And so that's kind of where your identity is kind of in that or whatever. And so you're like, I'd love to have more of that. That doesn't hurt. That's not a bad thing. For some of you, you're like, you know what I really want more of, Ben? I want more self-control. I need more patience. I want more of that. I want more wisdom. Give me more wisdom. I got some wisdom and I got some self-control, but things are overflowing all over the place, which is great. It's a good illustration. But I want more wisdom. I need more self-control. I want more, you know, who here, if you're honest with yourself, doesn't want a better marriage? More for your marriage, more for your spouse, more for your kids. You want more. I don't think anybody would raise their hand and be like, yeah, my marriage can go down the chute. I don't care. Like, you want more, right? You want more. All right? Kids, you want more. You more for your kids. Your kids are to follow the Lord. Kids to serve the Lord. You want more for your kids. You want more. And for some of you, here's what it is. For some of you, it's just dreams. Like, some of you have dreams about more. And maybe not even selfish dreams, but just more ways to serve, or more ways to speak, or more ways to lead, or more ways to lead worship, or more ways to, maybe if I write a book, then I can reach more people for the gospel. And more isn't really even a bad thing. I was at a party last night, and the conversation somehow turned to, like, everybody was had gotten, or will get a flat screen TV for Christmas that was in that room. And no sooner did we talk about it, about getting flat screens and how cool that would be, when the guy who has everything already, the wealthy guy, which is cool, he's a great guy, he's like, yeah, you know what I want? I want Apple TV for my flat screen. And I was like, yeah, more. Everybody wants more. Yes, you're proving my point. This is great. All right, and then everybody was like, yeah, we should ask for that too. And I'm like, I don't even have a flat screen, so I'm not even going to worry about it. So, but more, right? Like, more flat screen. Who doesn't want more flat screen? Or more athleticism, or more of something, right? In Panera the other day, it's fine that it overflowed. I was in Panera the other day, and I heard this guy talking on the phone. He's like, well, son, you're just going to have to stay after, and you have to shoot extra free throws and run extra things, and then that's how you're going to make the team. You're not going to make it by going home when everybody else does. Which is fine, but what's he saying to his son? You want more? If you want more, you're going to have to work for it. If you want more, you're going to have to go after it. It's going to take more if you're going to get more. All of us want more. At some point in your life, you will want more, you have wanted more, you all should be able to write something on that piece of paper. And here's what I want to tell you. I'm not interested in what you want more of this morning. I'm interested in that you want more of something. Okay? You all want, myself included, want more of something. And we just have twisted, warped ways of going about getting more. And when Jesus says, I have come that you may have life and have more than you would anticipate or generally think possible, Jesus is in the process of adjusting who we get more from and how we get more. Jesus does not bash more. Jesus goes, look, I'm going to talk to you right now about more and the proper way, the proper avenue for getting and having more, and what you should have more of. And so Jesus goes on. Jesus goes on in verse 11. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. Hired hand is the Pharisees, by the way, in this parable. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. And then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it, and the man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. He cares nothing for the sheep. Jesus goes, I am the good shepherd. I am not the hired hand. I am the shepherd. I am not the hired hand. Here's what happens in the evening in the life of a shepherd. Shepherd goes back to his house. He takes the sheep back to the pen that he got them out of in the morning. He turns it over to somebody that he hires to watch the sheep overnight. And that person that he hires, normally, and in this circumstance, Jesus is saying that person is worried about his life and his wallet. Because when the wolf and the thief come, that person flees and has no regard for the sheep. And Jesus is making a contrast. He's going, I am the good shepherd. I do not care more about my life and my wallet than my sheep. And so he brings that out in verse 11 through 13. He goes on to talk about his relationship with the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice. And there shall be one flock and one shepherd. And the reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me. I lay it down on my own accord. I do this voluntarily for the sheep, Jesus says. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up. This command I receive from what? My Father. Jesus is like, I received this from my shepherd. And to that story, which I think is a lot of us have read or know or seen or heard before, there is that division. They call Jesus a crazy lunatic, and they're like, why do we even listen to you? Which seems a little odd to me, that kind of a story would warrant that kind of a response. But I think what's going on is, like I've already hinted at, that Jesus is trying to reorient leadership, shepherding, and kind of who he is. And here's what I think Jesus is trying to say, right? We all have this sense that we want more in life. We all have this sense that there's more to be done, there's more to be accomplished. We all want to live a purpose-filled life, a meaningful life. I've come that you may have life and have it to the full. We all have that sense. We all have that idea in our head. We all have that desire in our hearts. And I love the fact that Jesus doesn't bash more. Jesus doesn't get up there, and Jesus doesn't stop at, I have come to bring you life. He could have just stopped. Period. Move on. But Jesus goes, I have come to bring you life, and I have come to bring you life to the full, to the max, more than you can anticipate, more than you can imagine, more than you would ever want or you could ever think of possible. I have come to bring you that life, more, in abundance, exceedingly beyond. And Jesus goes, but in order to get that life, you're going to have to understand something about life in my kingdom, capital K. It's a paradigm shift for the Pharisees, and it's a paradigm shift for us. And I think here is the point of the story. Abundance in life comes when you are giving, not getting. Abundance in life comes when you are giving, not getting. The whole story is about how the Pharisees of the time, how the religious leaders of the time, how the people of the time are taking and stealing and killing and destroying and taking with no regard. Remember, this story comes on the heels of the Pharisees kicking the blind man out of the church. They're like, get out of here. You're not worthy to be in here. We're kicking you out. We're taking from you. We're taking life. We're not even going to give you the opportunity to experience the goodness of Jesus, because we're just going to kick you out. And it's all a contrast of the Pharisees who are taking. And Jesus who's like, no, I'm giving, and I'm laying down, and I'm sacrificing, and I'm doing this for you, and I'm doing what my Father asked me to do, and I'm going to lay down my life for you, and I'm going to stand in the gate for you, and I'm going to take you to pasture, and I'm going to bring you back from the pasture, and I'm going to sacrifice, and I'm going to sacrifice, and I'm going to sacrifice. See, life comes to the sheep when the shepherd gives, not takes. Life comes to the sheep, life in abundance, life to the full, comes to sheep when shepherds give, not take. And Jesus goes, if you want abundance in life, it comes when you're giving, not getting. It comes when you're giving, not getting. And so far, some of you are okay still. It hasn't quite rocked your world the way it did the Pharisees, because in our twisted, warped little minds, I started to think about this the other day. I was like, I'm good with that. As long as I get to choose what I give, when I give it, how I give it, who I give it to, and all this other stuff. I don't mind giving. Giving is great. As long as it's on my terms. As long as I can give you how much I want, what I want, when I want to, and it works out for me, I'm fine with giving you anything you ask for, because I can just say no because it doesn't work out for me. Right? Some of you are fine with that. Jesus kind of knows that we kind of work like that. We're snakes. We try to get out of things. So he kind of quantifies or clarifies two areas that we must give if you want abundant life. If you want abundant life, it only comes from giving, not getting. And here's the two areas. I must give my life to the shepherd. The reality of I have come that you may have life to have it to the full is that the opposite is true too. Without Jesus, you have no chance at abundant life. Without Jesus, you have no chance of more, to the full, to the max, more than you would anticipate, more than you would expect. That only comes through the shepherd. That only comes through Jesus. And we need to set down the staff. We need to back away slowly. We need to let Jesus be the shepherd, and we need to be the sheep. See, if you want abundance in life, the right position for you is the sheep, not the shepherd. If you want abundance in life, the right position for you is the sheep, not the shepherd. Jesus says, I'm the shepherd. I've come to bring you life. I've come to bring it to you in abundance. But you need to stay as the sheep, not the shepherd. See, the Pharisees wanted to be the shepherd in the story. And how often we want to be the shepherds in our story, in our own lives. We like to pick up the staff. We like to figure it out ourselves. We like to go after more on our own, whatever more for you was when we talked about it earlier. And we're like, I'm good. I got this. I'm going for it. I can be the shepherd. And Jesus goes, if you want more, if you want abundance, if you want the max, stop being the shepherd. Start being the sheep. It's the only way it's going to happen. For some of you this morning, here's what that means. That just simply means that this morning is going to be the first time in your life that you've given your life to Jesus Christ. You're going to sit there and you're going to go, I need to surrender my life, my whole life to the shepherd. I've never done that before. I've spent my entire life trying to fill my life up with all of these things, and some of them we may have mentioned earlier. And I'm trying to be the shepherd, and I'm trying to call the shots, and I'm trying to do the deal, and I'm trying to figure it all out, and I'm trying to make it all happen. Because there's a desire in me for abundance in life, for a fulfillment, for a purposeful life, for a meaningful life, for something that will fill me up, and I'm calling the shots. For some of you this morning, in order to let God, you need to give your life to the shepherd. It means for you that you need to literally surrender your entire life to the shepherd and stop calling the shots. Because you want a full life. You've tried everything to get a full life. But the ironic part is you're running from the very person that can bring you a full life. Jesus goes, I have life to the fullest. It's not drugs. It's not friendships. It's not relationships. It's not, and I could list and go on and on and on. It's like fullness of life is found in me. And the ironic thing is I'm talking to myself, I spent the first 18 years of my life filling it up with everything else. But those in this room who have accepted Jesus know that fullness of life only comes with Jesus, and everything else is emptiness. And for some of you, what that means, surrendering, giving your life to the shepherd, means this. We're sneaky. We love to be sneaky. It's just who we are. We're sheep, right? We don't always do what we're supposed to do. So there's areas of our life that if you've surrendered to the Lord and you're like, I'm saved, I love Jesus, I'm a Christian, like that's not the issue for you. The issue for you this morning is more like there may be like that one area where you've kind of like tiptoed back over, shepherd's asleep, you tip over, you pick up the staff, and you kind of cut a deal with God that you're going to co-shepherd that area of your life. You're like, you know what, God, the timing is a little off. So let's me and you have a talk. All right, listen. What if we both were the shepherds? Because that would be really good, because then I could give you some feedback on like timing and what I want done and how it's all going to work. And then we can both shepherd this area of my life. So you kind of tiptoe over and pick up the staff, and you're like, all right, me and Jesus are co-shepherds of my bank account now. It's a good thing. Like, it's good. Jesus is still king. He's still Lord. But we just decided, we cut a deal, and now we're co-shepherds of this area of my life. We're co-shepherds of my relationships, of like who I date and who I'm friends with, and so-and-so is really not that bad. And I tried to explain that to Jesus. So we're co-shepherds of that area of our lives now. So for some of us, it's a total surrender. It's the first time that you're going to give up. Surrender your life to the shepherd. And some of you, it's an area that you've kind of taken back over time. And you're like, Jesus is king, he's my Lord, and I'm in control of this little thing over here, and I don't even know if Jesus notices. And Jesus is like, no, if you want abundance in life, it comes from giving, not getting. And the first thing that you need to give is you need to give your life to the shepherd. Verse 9, I am the gate, whoever enters through me. I'm the shepherd, whoever enters through me will be saved. Giving your life to the shepherd. And the second one is like it. I must give up me first and live for you first. I must give up me first and live for you first. Every shepherd gives up me first. Shepherds fight and they die. Think of David in the Old Testament, fighting a bear, fighting a lion. They're giving up me first. And Jesus says it in verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd what? Gives up me first. He lays down his life for the sheep. Giving up me first and living for you first. You will never experience abundant life if Jesus is not your shepherd and if you're all about yourself, because you'll continue to try to get more and more and more, and you'll continue to do it at everybody else's expense. That's what we do. We want more, and we want more, and we want more, and we want more, and we don't care who we have to ramrod, we don't care who we have to jump over, we don't care who we have to bulldoze, we don't care what has to happen for me to get more in life. And Jesus is kind of flipping it upside down on his head, even at the end of verse 18 where he says, this command I received from my Father. Jesus did it. Jesus put himself second, the Father's will first, came down to this earth, died on a cross, and in so doing put you first and himself second once again. And if we're going to experience abundance in life, it comes from giving, not getting. It comes from giving to people, living for people, serving the sheep in the sheep pen, the people who are saved, who have accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. But, 16, I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. Personally, I enjoy, I love, it's fun for me most of the time to be a shepherd and serve with you and serve you. Because we have a common goal. We have a common cause. Because we're going in the same direction. And what Jesus says here too is that not only am I giving up a me first idea for you first, but the you first needs to include those outside of the church. Other sheep that have not yet come in. And for me, that's really challenging. I have to give up a me first mentality for people that are outside church, that don't share a common cause or goal, who don't know Jesus yet, who I don't even know what their response will be, and I'm called to give up for them that I may have abundance in life. The Pharisees listen to this, and the Jews listen to this, and you go, in order for me to get to the top, this is what the Pharisees are saying, you're telling me that I have to give my life to you and give my life to other people? And the Pharisees and the Jews walk away and go, you're crazy. That doesn't jive with the way we do things here, Jesus. Nobody is going to do that on this earth, Jesus. You're telling me that if I want fullness of life, that I serve people, I don't take from them? You're telling me that if I want fullness of life, you're the shepherd and I'm not the shepherd? You're nuts. You're a lunatic. I'm going to get railroaded in the real world if I live like that. That's an extremely dangerous thing to say, Jesus, and I'm just not really willing to do it, and so we're out of here. Because you're crazy and you're a lunatic. Life and the fullness thereof will come, and I can promise you this, will only come when you give and not get. When you give your life to the shepherd and when you live your life for other people. The worship team is going to come up right now. Ironically, we have something to give you this morning. All right? But I don't want you to take it lightly. We've been doing this Red series, and we've been talking about extremely dangerous statements. We have been talking about living those statements, not just talking and bringing understanding to those statements in a mental aspect, but how do we live those statements? This morning we talked about life. How do I have life abundantly? How do I have life to the full? And so we have these kind of sport bracelets that you see going around these days, and what we wrote on it is just Red Life. And here's what I want to do this morning. I want to invite you to come up. I'm going to put this table to good use, and you can just come and grab a bracelet off of here. But only do that if you're serious about living what we talked about this morning. If you're like, you know what? If you have the response like the Jews had in verse 19 and 21, if you're like, yeah, I just don't know, like I'm just not sure, that's fine. There's no judgment. I'm not going to be going around in the hallway like, hey, why don't you have a red bracelet on? What are you doing? Like, that's fine. You can just be here and observe Jesus and look at the way we live and try to check it out, and that's cool. I'm cool with that. Our staff's cool with that. Our elders are cool with that. Well, that's fine with us. But if you're like, you know what? I do have an area of my life that I've taken back from the shepherd. And Jesus really isn't the shepherd in that area of my life anymore. I've kind of started to run that thing. And maybe you're here this morning and you're like, I've never given my life to the shepherd. I've always been the shepherd of my life. And this morning I just want to invite you to come up here and take one of these if you're serious and if the Lord's convicting you about an area of your life or your life as a whole that you need to just surrender to the shepherd. And if you're then serious about living your life for other people, because I think we're all serious about experience abundance in life. We're all serious about feeling the need, knowing that there's a deeper desire, that we're trying to fill our lives with something so that we have more of something. And Jesus goes, the more that you're trying to fill your life up with, the more that you're looking for is me, Jesus Christ. I laid down my life for you. I died for you. I bled for you. I'm the more that you're looking for. You need Jesus Christ in your life. You will never be happy, satisfied, fulfilled without Jesus Christ in your life. I'm going to ask you just to respond. I'm not going to let you just walk out this morning. I want you to spend some time with God as we do this last song. And as he convicts you and as you kind of do your deal with God, feel free to come up here and grab a bracelet as a symbol of, you know what? I'm giving this life to God. I'm giving this area of my life back to God. I'm going to live a red life. I'm going to live those extremely dangerous statements that we've been talking about. They're not just going to be mental knowledge for me. It's going to be a life that I desire to live with all that I am. Let's come up this way. Everybody go down that way so it's nice and orderly. But I just want to challenge you just to get with God right now and say, God, where are you not the shepherd in my life? And as God kind of deals with you, just come up here and grab one of these bracelets. Wear it through Christmas, wear it through Easter, wear it for the rest of your life, whatever you want to do. Set it on your desk at work. Whatever works for you to remember to live and to surrender to the shepherd and to serve others. So why don't you go ahead and do that now?